Dear respected brothers and elders, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, today we begin with our third lesson. It's been quite a while since we've had our previous lessons, but we've looked at some of the important masail in regards to intention for the different types of fasts. And a couple of questions I recall that some of you had last lesson. One was, do the recipients, I think you asked, do the recipients of the sadaqah need to be Muslim? Can you remember? So when it comes to things like zakat, when it comes to things like sadaqah, then you need to make sure you give it to Muslim poor people. That's the first question that was asked. And the second one, I thought I'll begin with that slide today. We spoke about miskeen last lessons. And someone asked the question, what is the difference between a miskeen and a faqir? What's the difference? And I touched upon the difference, but when I looked into it, there's actually a lot of different opinions into this question. The difference between a miskeen and a faqir. Okay? So, for example, when you look at the books of commentary, when you look at the books of tafsir, there's actually a difference in opinion between Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Shafi'i. Okay, now the only difference is the term, who's poorer than the other. That's the difference. But when it comes to giving zakat, when it comes to giving sadaqah, then you give it to them both. There's no difference. It's not like one needs to earn more than the other in order to not give it. No. Whether you're a miskeen or whether you're a faqir, they still take sadaqah and they still take zakat. So when you look in more detail, faqir, according to Ma'ariful Quran. Now Ma'ariful Quran is a very famous tafsir book, a commentary on the Holy Quran. In Ma'ariful Quran, it mentions clear the difference between a faqir and a miskeen. And of course, in translation, if you wanted to translate it in one word, faqir you can translate as the poor, and miskeen you will translate as the needy. Now they're both of course poor, but what it means by the poor person, the faqir, is that person who has nothing to his name. He has no wealth, he has no possession, he has no house, he has nothing basically. And this person, he would go around begging. He would go around begging. He would go around asking for help. That's what you call a faqir. So faqir, we will say, according to Ma'ariful Quran, is the lowest. Do you understand? Faqir. Now what is miskeen? Miskeen is that person, he might have wealth, okay? Or he might be living in a house. Yeah, he might have his basic needs. He might have, a food. He might have clothes. But everything out of his basic needs, he doesn't have the value of it more than the nisab. Okay, he doesn't have the value of it more than the nisab. And if you remember, what does nisab mean? Nisab is the threshold. Okay, it's the threshold. When a person has more than the nisab, that's when they start giving zakat. And the nisab is 600 and let's say, for ease of the mind, 612 grams of silver. Now how much is that equal to in pounds? You'll have to check on Google. Okay, but 612 grams of silver, of course the value always goes up. I believe it's like 41p per gram. Something like that. I think that's how much 1 gram of silver is worth, 41p. Something like this, it is. Okay, so I think Faisal is probably checking really quickly. But 612 grams of silver, which might be equal to 200, 300 pounds. Okay, if a person has more than 200, 300 pounds, then he has to give zakat. Okay, but let's say a person, he has wealth, so that means he's not faqir, but he only has 100 pounds. That means he's going to be a miskeen. You understand? These are the terms given in Ma'ariful Quran. you understand? Okay. Of course, the scholars have different opinions. Some of them say it's the other way around. Yeah. So let's not, just keep it in mind that in a sense they are both in need. They are both poor. And normally, sometimes a miskeen, he won't come begging. He won't because of course in his mind he has, what he needs to survive for maybe a month or so. Do you understand? But he hasn't got enough to survive for 6-7 months. Sometimes a miskeen, he might be in your face, but you don't know he's miskeen. You don't know he's poor. Because he won't ask you. Whereas a faqir will ask you. Because he has nothing. Did you check? What?
So 59p.
So see, it's gone up now.
Is 1 gram.
So 59p of silver. So if you were to do 59p or 0.59 times by 612, how much does it equal, Faisal? This is what you call interaction.
0.59 times 6.
Yeah, 0.59, just times it by 612.
That's 361 pounds.
So that's the nisab. Keep let's say 360, just to be on the safe side, yeah? 360 is the nisab. If you own more than 360, you have to give zakat.
And you can't take zakat.
And no, you can't take zakat. If you own...
It was 250 pounds, then you could...
250 pounds, in that case you can take zakat. But this is of course, as well as the 250 pounds, you don't have things more than your basic needs. Basic needs are, for example, your home. That's your basic need. Furniture, basic need. Clothes, basic need. The utensils that you use, basic needs. Yeah, food, yeah, basic needs. Even a car, you can say a car is a basic need as well. Maybe you need to drive. You need to go places. Car could be a basic need. Let's say, for example, that person has 2 cars. Is that second car his basic need? No. So even though he might not have wealth, physical wealth, but because he's got a second car, which is definitely going to be more than 360 pounds, then you can't classify that person as a miskeen. So that's the difference.
And if you own the house?
If he owns his house, do you understand? Of course, that's his basic need. Yeah. Yeah. If it's a grand house now, with so many bathrooms, yeah, it's excess. Now, of course, you got to kind of think, is that really what he needs? Is that his basic need?
So if somebody comes and asks you, look, Ramadan's coming, and you'll be given zakat or whatever, can you please remember me? Now, what am I supposed to do when somebody says that?
So, or someone's come to you and said, can you please remember me? Yeah. And do you know this person to be poor? Do you know them to be a miskeen or a faqir?
That's not about anybody. So let's say I don't know him. He knows me, but I don't know him.
He knows you. Of course, it can be embarrassing for them to ask, but of course, if you want to make sure yourself, your zakat, your sadaqah is going to the right places, then of course you can, have a sit down with him. Of course, there are ways to ask as well. If you see this person's wearing a Rolex watch, or then you're going to think to yourself, in a sense, that possession is definitely going to be, in a sense, a watch isn't really a basic need, is it? Yeah, and if that is equal to more than 360 pounds, then he's not going to be classified as a miskeen or a faqir. But when it comes to, that's what they both mean separately. But when it comes to giving zakat, they are both recipients of zakat. Does that make sense? Just one is, the faqir is more in need of the miskeen. If I was to clarify, in Tafsirul Jalalain, which is another commentary of the Quran, according to Imam Shafi'i, he's one of the leading imams of the 4 madhahibs. According to Imam Shafi'i, his definition is this way. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, his definition is the other way around. Okay? So when I looked in Ma'ariful Quran, which is a very well-known commentary book in Islam, especially that we read in our madaris, in our madrasas, in our schools, they interpretate it in this way. Okay? The faqir is the one who has nothing, and he will come and beg, and the miskeen is the one who has but not enough for 6-7 months, and generally he might not beg you, he might not come and ask you.
So if somebody just begs to you,
and if you believe them to be a faqir, then yeah.
But can you not assume then, if he's begging, he's come to beg to you, say, please can you remember me?
Like I said, uncle, in those situations you'll speak to them. You can speak to them, you can sit down with them. Invite them for tea, because zakat is something that you want to make sure you give it to the right people. You want to make sure, you're not giving your zakat to people that don't need it. Of course, in your mind, Allah will hopefully accept it, but of course it hasn't benefited, has it? It hasn't gone to the right place. So there's no harm in inviting that person for tea to your house, getting to know them if someone comes, and asks you for zakat. But when it comes to places that we know, definitely there are, for example, right now in Turkey, in Syria, these people have nothing, okay? Yeah, they're miskeen, they're faqir right now. Or even in our own home countries, wherever we're from, we will know that there are poor people in those countries. We can of course give it to them without even thinking about it, because we know they have nothing. They have nothing. And even if they're living in a house, but like I said, they're probably going, then you might be able to classify them as miskeen. So even if they're miskeen, you will still, they can still take zakat and they can still take sadaqah. Does that make sense, inshallah? So I just wanted to clear those definitions. Miskeen and faqir, at the end of the day, they are both recipients. Because in the Quran, Allah says, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. And then it carries on. Do you understand? Okay? So that's the Quran ayat in Surah At-Tawbah, ayah number 60. Inshallah. Now the next question we have for today, going back to fasting. We spoke about when you need to fast, what time does it start from. Now who are the people that are exempt from fasting? Who doesn't need to fast? A sick person. A pregnant woman when she fears for the life of her baby, it's going to affect the baby. Anyone else we know? Person traveling, yes. So, and a lady going through a period. Of course, she doesn't even need to pray salah as well, isn't it? A lady on her menses doesn't even need to pray salah. Okay, but the two common ones mentioned in the Holy Quran are the ill person and the traveler. Okay, Allah says in Surah Al-Baqarah, and whoever is ill or is traveling, okay, then he can complete the count. He can complete the days that he's traveling or the days he's ill on different days. Do you understand? So for example, if he's been traveling for 5 days in Ramadan, then he doesn't need to fast for those 5 days. Just understand this for now. He doesn't need to fast, and he'll need to complete those 5 days when he's got the time, when he's found the time. Very important, you understand? When he's found the time after Ramadan, okay, then he will keep the fasts. Do you understand? Okay. So someone, now what do you classify as a musafir? Because traveler, if you think about it, I traveled from home to here. Yeah. So in a sense, that's traveling. But what do you call a shari'i traveler? Who is classified as a musafir? In order for them to, pray their salah differently, in order for them to not fast. What is classified as a musafir, a traveler? So a traveler is that person who's traveled the qasr distance. Qasr meaning the minimum. The qasr distance of 54.5 miles. Okay? 54.5 miles. So if you were to travel from here to Birmingham, easily you've done 100 miles. So automatically, you're already, as soon as you've left your hometown, you'll understand this, yeah? The miles are counted once you've left your hometown. Okay? You don't count it from your doorstep, it's counted from your hometown. Do you understand? Okay?
If we live in Staines.
If you live in Staines,
Where does it start?
so you would actually say once you've left Staines, that's where the miles start counting. So for example, let's say for example, from your door to your destination is 54.5 miles. Yeah? But actually from the boundary of your home is less. Of course, it's going to be a bit difficult. Yeah? But if it's less, from the boundary is not 54, it's actually, let's say 50 miles, then technically you're not a musafir. Do you understand? Okay? So the minimum distance is 54.5 miles. Once you've traveled this, then you're classified as a musafir. Okay? Meaning, once you've made the intention to travel this. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, if I'm traveling from here to Birmingham, if I'm traveling from here to Birmingham, that's easy 100 miles, yes? Okay? Yeah, it's easy 100 miles. Every time I used to travel to my madrasa, which is near Birmingham, that was 110. Okay? So here to Birmingham, easy 100, even let's say 90 miles, okay? But let's say 40 miles later, I've traveled 40 miles and it's Zohar time. It's Zohar time. I've traveled 40 miles, it's Zohar time. Now, I get out of the car, what do I pray? Do I pray the qasr namaz or do I pray the full namaz? No. I pray the qasr namaz. Because I'm a traveler. The total distance I'm going to be traveling is 100 miles. So I pray once I've left the house, I'm a traveler now, because my intention is I'm going to be traveling 100 miles in total. So that whole distance, I'm now a musafir. So even after 40 miles, I'm still going to pray qasr. Okay? Even after, and of course once it's over 54, then of course it's common sense. But even before the 54, because I'm already classified myself now as a musafir, I'm going to pray qasr, even after the 40 miles. Because we're not going to just be looking at the 40, we're looking at the whole distance. Does that make sense? Okay, so the minimum for you to become a traveler is 54.5 miles. Okay, so a person traveling this much distance, and remember, the travel needs to have begun before Fajr. Before Fajr, the journey should have started. For example, let's say it's Ramadan. We always understand when we give examples. Say it's Ramadan, okay, and Fajr has already started, yeah, but in my mind, I know I'm going to be traveling later today. For example, let's say I've got a flight. Let's say I've got a flight at 2 p.m. and it's Ramadan. Now, I know I'm going to be traveling, but because I'm still at home and it's already Fajr time, I need to fast that day. I need to fast. Because you look at the situation, you began the day. You began the day at home. You weren't traveling, were you? You began Fajr at home. And when is the beginning time of intention? Fajr, isn't it? So because I'm at home at the Fajr time, I need to fast that day. I need to make intention and I need to start my fast. And at 2 p.m. when I travel, I should still be fasting. Now, if I'm struggling to fast because of the travel, because of the journey, if I'm struggling, then yes, I can break it. But honestly speaking, when we have like a one-day travel, understand, and especially if it's at 2 p.m., are we going to be struggling sitting on the plane? Hardly. Do you understand? We get that nowadays anyway, uncle. When we work in our offices, our colleagues are probably having lunch. It doesn't affect us there. Do you understand? Of course, if you're struggling now, and you think to yourself, I can't do this because my travel, I'm finding it really difficult, then of course you can break it. If the fly is before Fajr, then you don't need to keep the...
You keep it until 2 p.m.
No, meaning you should actually keep it for the whole day.
But if you want to break it.
If you want to break it, meaning, like I said now that if you want to break it but you don't need to, then you shouldn't. You should keep it. Do you understand? Because it's actually better for you to keep the fast in Ramadan when you can.
So the flow time does not matter, whether it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever.
Yeah.
You've got to keep the fast
because you've been at home at Fajr time. Do you understand?
Just keep it. If you can't keep it, then you break it.
And then if you're struggling, remember.
Well, I know you'll struggle.
Huh?
So it's not just smell of the food next to you.
And if you are struggling, if you're truly struggling, then of course, Allah forgive you, and of course break it if you need to, and keep it on another day. But this is something that people don't know. This is a very big misconception. People think, this is what my teachers taught me. People think I'm traveling later. Think of it like this, okay? Let's say Maghrib is 6 p.m. and my flight's at 4 p.m. That means I'm traveling today. I don't need to fast. But technically, you should have actually, because you are technically at home for the most of the day. And in a sense, it's only just 2 more hours you need to survive without food. Of course, now even if, for example, Fajr is at 4 a.m., but your traveling starts at 6 a.m., you still need to keep the fast. Now, let's say after 6 a.m., quite a few hours have gone by, and you're really finding it difficult. Then, according to this ayah, you can take it. Then, in that case, and break your fast and complete it on other days.
So you always have options, like you must not. It's all depends on you, isn't it?
No, so in this situation, you got to look at your situation at the beginning of the day. At the beginning, and when I say beginning of the day, I'm talking about Fajr time. What was your situation at Fajr time?
Like anyone who can't, but if you can, even if you traveling, if you 100,000 traveling, if you can continue. Yeah, is that right?
So, I mean, if you can't, what do you mean? If you can't fast, is that what you're? If you cannot fast, are you talking about like someone who's old or sick?
A you say, like struggling now, you travel. So I'm struggling, as you say, like later on to break.
Yeah, yeah.
Or like before.
But the thing is, if you think before, oh, I'm gonna struggle, no, you should still fast. It's like, we might think, I'm gonna struggle to fast. When the days of Ramadan were like 14, 15 hours, we were all thinking, I'm gonna struggle. Does that mean we don't keep it? Does that mean, do you know what? I'm not going to fast. No, we did it. We did it. We went through the hardship. We tried our best, and Allah will reward you. The more you find it hard, Allah actually rewards you more for this. Do you know that? Okay. So when it comes to traveling, if the travel doesn't begin before Fajr, then you need to begin the day fasting. You need to begin the day fasting. Now afterwards, if you're actually suffering, then of course, yeah, you can break it. Do you understand? Not like, I'm sitting on the plane now. They've given me my water. Do you know what? I'm traveling now. No, you should fast. You should fast the day. Fast it because it hasn't been hard on you. And now let's say it's a 2-day journey. Let's say sometimes flights can take 2 days. Yeah, flights can take 2 days. So on that first day, of course, you try your best to fast if it began after Fajr. But on the second day, what do you think?
It's already started when I still travel.
On the second day, because I'm already traveling, now you definitely don't have to keep it. Do you understand? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So for a traveler, you need to have traveled the minimum distance of 54.5 miles, and the journey must have begun before the starting time of Fajr, whatever the starting time of Fajr is.
So on the second scenario, you stated, so if you're traveling more than for 2 days.
Let's say you're traveling for 2 days.
So the second day you say you definitely don't have to.
Yeah, because
you want to.
if you want to, if you know you can, then Allah will reward you. When you don't, because you're doing something, when you don't need to do. Because in a sense, Allah's given me the option to complete this day outside Ramadan. But of course, it's better for you to complete that day in Ramadan. It's better. Allah says it in the Quran as well. Fasting is better for you. Fasting on that day is actually better for you. But you don't need to, because now because you are now classified as a traveler from the beginning of Fajr, because you've been traveling the whole night before. You're traveling this whole day as well.
So I'm traveling Pharaoh and he's been beheaded and he says, I'm going to keep today. And I'm going to say, no, I can't keep today.
So you're both on the same flight.
So yeah, the same flight. We're traveling together, kind of thing.
Is it?
I've got the option. He's got the option. But
You both got, and is your travel before the starting of Fajr?
Well, no, we were on the second day.
On the second day, yeah. So you don't need to keep it at all. And if he wants to keep it, that's up to him.
So don't show
And
what
Imam,
time we're together.
what happens when with the time differences?
So that's the thing. It does get very complicated. That's why it's always good to know where you're going. It's like, how do you pray Salah on a plane? How do you pray Salah on a plane? That's, of course, now we're going to something else. We're talking about Salah now. We want to talk about fasting. But you know how it does. You need to know the timings. You need to know how.
So if I'm going from here to Pakistan, right? 4 hours ahead.
Yeah.
I start my fast over here at Fajr, right? I'm traveling 8 hours down the road, down the line. I'm in Pakistan now. When do I end the fast?
When do you end the fast?
Maghrib in Pakistan, or is it?
No. It won't be Maghrib in UK. To be honest, it will be Maghrib. If you think about it realistically, it will be Maghrib in the country that you're on top of.
Okay.
And of course, that's something that might be hard to know. You understand? Of course, you can't see it, but of course you don't. But are you able to check the flight, the sunset? Can you know the sunset on the thingy? Does it show you?
What you can do is you can see the map.
You can see the map.
And you've got the app on the phone.
Sometimes you do see on the map though, it shows the sun, it's dark. So see, have you gone to the dark side or are you still in the light side? Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you're in Pakistan, you're not going to be looking at the Maghrib of UK anymore. Yeah, so if you take that scenario, you're traveling to Pakistan, it's at 10 a.m. your flight, and of course you've had to fast, you've began the day fasting, 10 a.m. you've set off. And if it's an 8-hour flight, UK time, you will get there 6 p.m., right? But what time will that be in Pakistan?
It'll be 10 p.m.
And that'll probably be Isha time by then, isn't it?
Yeah.
So then technically you should have broken your fast. Then that's when you'll need to look on the map. Where are you? And or even look outside your window. Yeah, that's the... Yeah. Look outside the window. To be honest, best option, Look outside the window. Is it dark? If it's dark, then Maghrib time's already started. Then you can eat. Yeah, that's the most what do you call it, reasonable thing to do. Look outside your window. If you can see the sun has set, if it's gone dark, yeah, you're not going to wait until you go, because if you wait to go to Pakistan, you're going to be waiting for unnecessarily.
When you are in Dubai, that time is after Maghrib time.
Do you understand? It's actually always good to. It's actually, you know what, people don't, but it's good to plan these things, see these things from before. See your flight trajectory, what countries you probably go on top of. It doesn't need to be exactly Dubai, you just need to know what you need to know, for example, if it takes me halfway through the flight, where will I be, and what's the sunset time in that country. You understand? And then that's how, do you understand? Okay, but back to this, that's the first person who's exempt. When you talk about traveling, you can go into so many different masail, so many different questions. But one thing that you need to keep in mind that many of us didn't know, the minimum is 54.5 miles outside your hometown, and the journey should have started before Fajr. If it started after Fajr, then you need to start that day fasting. Okay?
What about the salah? Is it civil as well?
Huh?
The civil situation, salah.
So
Salah when you pray.
so what about it?
Like,
So if you're at home and it's Fajr, you're going to pray the full namaz, of course.
okay,
But once you've traveled, once you've started,
yes.
as I was saying, and Zohar time, then you're traveling more than 54, yeah? You're not traveling 40 or something. You're traveling more than 54. Then of course you make it short. You understand? Okay?
The last question, so is
Yeah.
any fasting you do in Ramadan,
Yeah.
it's always more better than other days, isn't it?
Of course, yeah. Ramadan fasts are the best. So when it comes to a musafir, like Faisal was saying, you don't have to, but if you want to keep the fast, that's better for you.
Because this is
'Cause it's been allocated for that day. But of course, if you don't do it, then there's no sin. Allah has given you that leniency. Allah has given you that ease.
But you get this kind of reward when you make
Yeah, meaning you will get the more or less the same reward, but it's better. It's more. How do you explain it? It's more virtuous in a sense. It's more virtuous to do it in Ramadan. It's more virtuous.
because that's
You-
the time.
Yeah, that's the time. But Allah will give you, the same reward, more in a sense.
fulfilling for you an individual person,
In a sense, you think you'll feel good about yourself as well. I'm doing it in Ramadan. Do you understand? Because there's that. Because in a sense, in Ramadan as well, Allah has made Ramadan such that the jinns are locked away, the angels are everywhere. The doors of Jahannam are closed, the doors of Jannah are open. Only in Ramadan you have this. You have this situation. Does that make sense? So the first person who's exempt is a traveler, a Shari'i traveler, and the second person who is ill. He's ill, but not something like a minor headache. Yeah, minor headache doesn't mean I can't fast anymore. No, you're ill and you fear that if you were to fast, the illness will get worse. Okay, so if it's actually a very bad headache, then of course maybe But if it's something like I just feel a bit lightheaded, then
But this is the point. So now it's very clear, really. Just get on with it. Keep the fast.
I mean try to. But if you
and
know,
break it. If you can't get on with it,
then break it. Yes.
then it's better to do that than not to attempt it, because illness is everybody.
But sometimes, for example, you will know maybe the night before someone's been really badly ill. Now you're not going to tell you're not going to tell that person you need to fast, because you can see for your own, and they know that they're really badly, they're suffering. Then of course that person doesn't need to fast. Do you understand? Because why? Maybe the fast might make his situation worse, or the sickness is life threatening.
Patient, when he is hunger, his diabetes is low,
Yeah.
dangerous for his
If that's life threatening, if it's life threatening, like diabetes, if someone fasts, that can make his sugar level go very low. And if it's life threatening for him, then of course in that situation he won't need to fast either.
And again, funny you're talking about diabetic. There's so many different variations.
Yeah. Even my dad, he's got diabetes as well, but alhamdulillah, he attempts to fast. You understand? You got to look at the illnesses. You got to look at the situation of the sickness. You got to look at the situation of the person. How ill is he? If it's proper minor, you just got to kind of use a common sense. If it's yourself and it's a small headache, if I was to go to sleep for a couple of hours, it would go. Then of course you can fast. Sleeping is not going to break your fast, is it? It's going to help you get through the day. But if it's really bad and fasting is going to actually make me worse, then that person doesn't need to fast as well. So
there's no limit on sleeping then?
What do you mean? Just make sure you don't miss your namaz.
Well, that's not other than bed, no, because my mother used
A person, if a person want to do,
get up 11 o'clock, don't stay in bed longer than 11 o'clock. And I don't know where she got that from. So I think
meaning, but the thing is, this is where you go to now. Do you want to spend the whole day of Ramadan sleeping?
No, because as you said, the headache and everything, it doesn't matter.
No, of course, if it's a headache, then if sleeping will help settle it down, you'd rather sleep in order to keep the fast. Do you understand? Yeah. So what would a traveler and a sick person do that hasn't been able to keep the fast? Yeah, he'll need to keep the qada. Okay, he'll need to keep the qada. And when will he keep the qada? He will keep the qada, for example, once the ill person gets better, and once Ramadan's finished, once he's got the opportunity now of course he can't keep the qada in Ramadan, can he? Because he needs to do the Ramadan fast. So once Ramadan is finished, and once the ill person is better or the traveler is not traveling anymore, then he will now need to make up for the days he missed.
As soon as possible, you can't be lazy.
Meaning it's better to do as soon as possible. You should do as soon as possible. If you don't do as soon as possible and you delay it, as long as you've done it though, then it's fine. But you don't know. What if one of the questions coming up, uncle, do you know what? Watch the next question now. Watch the next question now. Okay? If a traveler or sick person passes away during the journey or illness, okay? So the question that you asked is going to be coming up, uncle. So it will come up, okay? And when it comes up, I'll come back to you. But when a traveler or sick person, they pass away during the journey or illness, is anything wajib upon him? So what do I mean by that? Let's say, for example, I'm traveling, and I've been traveling for 5 days. I've been traveling for 5 days in Ramadan, okay? And I come back. So what do I need to do? I need to make sure I keep 5 days, isn't it? I need to keep 5 days qada now, isn't it? But let's say once I've got home straight away, or a person passes away, that traveler, he's passed away. Now, what about the 5 days that he technically missed? What does he need to do? Does he need to make up for them?
You can't do anything about it.
No, but what I mean by that, like, do his relatives need to do anything on his behalf? No. Do you know why? Because for the traveler and even the sick person, in the Quran Allah says, make up for the missed fasts on other days. Now the question is, have they even found other days? They haven't even found the other days. So how can they make up for it? So a person who's been traveling for 5 days, or a person who's been ill for 5 days, and now all of a sudden after his travel, immediately after his travel, or let's just say immediately after Ramadan, because in Ramadan could he have made up for it? No. So immediately after Ramadan, he's passed away. This ill person or this sick person this ill person or traveler will not need to make up for the missed days, because he hasn't had the opportunity. When we look, nothing will be wajib, meaning he won't need to make up for the missed days. You said, uncle, how is he going to make up for it? Because he has passed away. The way he'll make up for it is his family members will have to pay for each one. They'll have to pay, meaning they would have had to. But of course, because he didn't get the opportunity to make up for it, he won't have to. Okay, if you look at the question and look at the scenario I've given afterwards. So first of all, understand, nothing will be wajib, not even the fidya. And so fidya is the term used. It's like the ransom. You can say it's like the recompense to make up for each day. So for each day you give, for each day you technically missed, you'll have to give that person that's passed away. That is, if he hadn't passed away, you'll need to physically fast, isn't it? But now that he's passed away, he can't physically fast anymore. So normally a recompense, a ransom, fidya should be paid. But because the traveler or the ill person hasn't, found other days to make up for it, he won't need to give any fidya, or his relatives won't need to give any fidya. Why? Because they didn't get the opportunity to redeem the qada. He didn't get the opportunity, did he? Because the opportunity will come when faced. Will it come in Ramadan or will it come after Ramadan? It will come after Ramadan, and it will come after Ramadan when he is not traveling or when he is not sick. That's when the opportunity comes. Look at this example I've given. Let's say a person, because of travel, he missed 10 days. He missed 10 days of Ramadan because he was traveling for a full 10 days. Okay? And he comes home, but he comes home and he's passed away 5 days later. So technically, he had how many days of opportunity was he given? 5. And if he did fast those 5 days, then it's fine. But let's say he didn't. Let's say he thought, you know what, when the days are short, I'll do it.
Or maybe I have to rest.
Huh? Or maybe, yes, exactly. I have to rest for some time. Yes. Maybe I have to rest for some time. And so he's rested for 5 days, but then all of a sudden he's passed away. He had the opportunity now to fast for 5 days, didn't he? So even though he missed 10 days, he will need to give fidya for fast for 5. And the other 5, because he never got the opportunity, he won't need to make up for them. Does that make sense?
Why he, you mean the family?
Huh? I mean, yes, right? He, of course, he can't physically give it, but his family, they need to give it now on his behalf.
Anybody not give that?
Hmm?
If anybody not give him,
Then, of course, it becomes a debt upon that person to Allah. Is that, for example, our salah? Yeah, I'm going off a bit now. Our salah, every salah we miss, people think lightly, but we need to make up for our salah, our qada. Now, let's say, for example, we need to take it seriously. That's why our scholars tell us you should have a number in your mind of how many salahs you've missed in your life. Okay, let's say, for example, in my life, I've missed 300 salah. Yeah, in my life, I've missed 300 salah, so I'm going to start making up for it, and I'm making up for it, and now I've passed away. Yeah, and I've still got 200 left. That's why it's always good to make sure family members know these things. They know these things. Yeah, you make them all aware. So then in that case, you're 200. So for each salah, you have 200 salahs left. Okay, I'm not saying 200 days. I'm not saying 200 days of salah, because 200 days of salah will be 200 times 6. Why 6? Because of witr as well. Okay. But in total, I've got 200 salah. For each salah I've missed, and I haven't been able to make up for it, I need to give fidya. I need to pay a certain amount, which will go to sadaqah. So yeah, the fidya that you'll give for salah is the same as the fidya that you'll give for a missed day, a missed fast.
Who could be that fidya?
So we're going to come to it, inshallah. We're going to come to it.
Tell your family.
So for example,
It's easy for them to know he didn't fast 5 days or 10 days.
I mean, you should always make them aware. Always, it's good to always make. And if you haven't got family, then friends. Let them know. That I've got this missing. If anything happens to me, please do it on my behalf. These kind of things. Or make a bequest from your will. Yeah, you can always make a bequest from your will that if I die, then I want this much money to go to sadaqah in order to fulfill my fidya for these things. Do you understand?
That's one reason to do Sharia rather than
No, of course, these things, of course, Sharia will, they might ask you, of course, you can always make these bequests in normal wills as well. You can always make them in normal wills as well, okay? So, as I was saying, he's had the opportunity to make up for 5 fasts, and he did, then nothing is upon him. If he didn't make up for the 5 fasts, then he needs to give fidya for each fast, okay? Do you understand? And the next question, like we were talking about, what if the traveler began the journey after Fajr? Remember, we were talking about this, isn't it? Or it's a mild illness, something very, small, something not very, not very dangerous or, life-threatening. So, in regards to the journey, a person will have to fast. He will have to begin the fast if the journey began after Fajr. Do you understand? Like I said, if he began before Fajr, he doesn't need to fast. If he began after Fajr, he needs to fast, okay? And in regards to the illnesses, it's always good to speak to the professionals. Without consulting a doctor, a mild illness of which one has no past experience, this does not permit breaking the fast, okay? That's why it's always good to, speak to the professionals, okay? Speak to the doctors. They will be able to tell you the best. They will be able to tell you, if you fast, it's not going to be good for your health. They will be able to tell you, do you understand? Okay? If it's an illness that you've had before, and if I fast, this is going to make things worse for me, then you can break it. Okay? Or you don't have to keep it. But if it's like a new illness that you don't know nothing about, you can't just, decide yourself. Speak to the professionals. Does that make sense? Okay. So if one, what do you call it? So listen to this, very important. A minor illness of which one has, and it's got to be a minor illness, yeah, of which one has no past experience, this does not permit breaking the fast. If one does break the fast because of a minor illness, he has no experience, he has no knowledge over, he has never experienced it in his life. If he does break the fast, not only will he need to do the qada, he will also need to keep the kafara. And you remember we spoke about kafara, didn't we? What's the kafara that we will need to keep? Unless you're, chronically ill or something like that, 60 days continuous. So for example, let me give you my example. If this was me, I would need to keep the qada, and I will also need to keep 60 days continuous. Does that make sense? Okay. Huh?
So one day is going to be 60.
So be 61 in total. So one of them you have to have the intention is the qada, and then the rest, I'm keeping kafara, I'm keeping the kafara, that's the intention for the other 60. Do you understand? Okay. So when it comes to illnesses, if it's a minor illness you've never had in your life, speak to a doctor. If the doctor tells you, do you know what, it's gonna be dangerous, then break it. Of course you've consulted with the doctor, you've met that criteria. If you now take into your own hands and over a minor illness you've broken the fast when technically you shouldn't have, because of course it was only a minor one. Of course only the doctors they're the best, they will know whether it's minor or major. Do you understand? So we should never try to be doctors ourselves, okay? Go to the professionals, isn't it, uncle? Huh? Of course. And the other one, if one is recovering from an illness, so say you've had a major illness, okay? But now you're getting better, but I'm getting better, so should I fast? But if you were to fast, let's say you're gonna fall ill again, then you should just not fast. Do you understand? Don't fast. Leave the fast until you get fully recovered, okay?
If he tries, it will be in 5,
If he tries, if he wants to show off,
then have to break it. But
if he tries, but then let's say he ends up getting worse again, then you'll have to break it anyway.
Yeah, but that would be a requirement, kafara, then would it?
I mean, and this is what do you call it? This illness is like a major illness, okay? It's something that you've had knowledge or you've experienced in the past. Okay? The kafara is for like a minor illness that you've never had in your life before.
One thing more.
Yeah.
If one is permanent sickness, he's not taking the
Medication.
He is taking a medication. His permanent diabetes is not. He has to pay
Fidya. So this person, one thing that this person can do, of course the best thing to do is fast, isn't it? When would a person take the tablets, uncle? Give me timings.
He can't, for example, me.
Yeah.
After 12 o'clock, after 12, if I not eat, my sugar is going low, very low.
So like 12 o'clock you have to have medicine.
I have to take meat.
I understand.
Every day. Otherwise, anytime I'm hungry, my sugar is going low.
I understand. So in that case, like if because of medication, you can't fast, then yeah, you'll pay fidya for every fast. For every fast you'll pay fidya. How much the fidya is, we're going to come to. I don't want to say it now. We'll come to it, inshallah. It's in today's slide if we can get through the time, inshallah, okay? So this was, the traveler beginning the journey after Fajr, or if it's a mild illness, then you have to fast. Does that make sense? In the next question we have, what if a traveler or sick person, so this is just the question, what if the traveler or sick person fasts the qada of a previous Ramadan in the current? Now what do I mean by this? Let's say for example, I've got a wajib, let's say I've made a vow. Let's say I've made a vow, okay? And now in Ramadan, I've decided I want to keep my vow fast. Yeah? The fast that I made as a vow, I want to keep it in Ramadan. And I've made the intention, I am keeping my vow fast today. What will be accepted? The Ramadan fast or the vow fast? The Ramadan fast, because the Ramadan is superior. Now the scenario is, let's say for example, I'm a traveler and I'm traveling in Ramadan and I've been traveling for 5 days. Okay, let's say I'm in Abu Dhabi. Okay, let's say I'm in Abu Dhabi, okay, and I'm there for 5 days, and it's Ramadan. So technically, do I need to fast? Huh?
Yeah.
No, I'm a traveler.
Oh,
Remember, even look, you need to understand one thing. A traveler is a person. There's another thing to the traveling. There's another thing to a traveler as well. Okay, you're classified as a traveler if you've traveled more than 54 miles, and the destination you're going to, you're staying there for less than, I am sure, 15 days. Less than 15 days. So if I'm staying in Abu Dhabi for 5 days, I am technically a traveler in Abu Dhabi, isn't it? Yeah. So now, do I need to fast those 5 days in Abu Dhabi? Technically, yes or no? No. But I remembered, I got 5 days qada from last Ramadan, and I still haven't made it up. Yeah. Last Ramadan, I was traveling in Abu Dhabi as well. Yeah. And I still haven't made up for those 5 days. And now I want to fast last Ramadan. Now, what will be accepted? This Ramadan or last Ramadan? Last Ramadan. Because there's a difference. You know why? There's a difference. You know why? If that person was to pass, if I was to pass away, yeah, if I was to pass away at the end of those 5 days, okay, is those 5 days qada in that Ramadan, are they a debt upon me? Because I haven't had the opportunity. But those 5 days in last Ramadan, are they a debt upon me? Yeah, because I've had the whole year to make up for it, and I never made up for it. Do you understand? And now I've decided to make up for it. Of course, the timing's a bit, not good. But if I now decide to make up for it in the next Ramadan, then the previous Ramadan, because the previous Ramadan is still a debt. Think of it like this: it's still a debt on me. And this Ramadan's qada is not a debt on me yet. It becomes a debt. It becomes upon me once I get the opportunity after I finish traveling. But the previous Ramadan, I've had the whole year. So I've had the opportunity, but I didn't take it. And now if I take it, I've taken it. So last Ramadan fast will be counted in that Ramadan for a traveler. Okay, for a traveler. Let's say, for example, I'm not a traveler. I'm me. Okay, I'm at home. And I got one qada from last Ramadan. And I decide to keep the last Ramadan qada in this Ramadan, what will be accepted? Last Ramadan or this Ramadan? This Ramadan. Because for me, I have to fast. For me, this is this is when I have to fast. Yeah, do you understand? That's the difference between a traveler and a resident. Okay. So as I said, what if a traveler or sick person? Even the same applies for a sick person as well. Okay. But of course, the sick person, you'll think, why would he fast? He's not even feeling well to fast, isn't it? But just for the scenario, okay? So if a traveler or sick person fasts the qada of a previous Ramadan in the current, what will happen? In Ramadan, if a traveler or a sick person intends to keep the fast, the qada fast of a previous Ramadan, then the fast will count as the qada of the previous Ramadan. As I was saying, the qada will count, the fast will count as the qada of the previous Ramadan. However, it is better to keep the fast of the Ramadan he is in. It is better because it's for that time. But if he doesn't, then, in a sense, by making up for the previous, you kind of, relieved yourself from, the qadas that are indebted upon you, okay? Now, is it better to fast when one is able to? So say, for example, we were talking about a traveler. Let's say, he's traveled before Fajr. Does he need to fast? No. He's traveled before Fajr, yeah? Before Fajr. Does he need to fast? No. But if he can, should he do? Is it better? Is it better? The answer is, if one finds difficulty in fasting during his travel, then it is better to keep the qada later. So if it's going to be difficult, then keep the qada later. Common sense. It is mentioned in Fatawa Tahta Khaniya. It's one of our fatwa books that we use in our madrasas. And what does fatwa mean? In fatwa, the plural is fatawa. Fatawa in English means like rules. For example, a very common question, what's the fatwa on mortgage? That's what people will ask about fatwas, yeah? Or, I've given my wife 3 divorces. What's the fatwa? What happened? What's the answer? Do you understand? So in one book, Fatawa Tatar Khaniya, it says it is makruh for a traveler to fast when it is difficult for him. So if it is difficult for him, then he shouldn't fast. Because Allah wants ease for you. Allah doesn't want difficulty for you, okay? And
I'm going to show off anyway, regardless.
if he's showing off, uncle, that means it's not going to be difficult for him. It's going to be easy for him. No one's going to show off and suffer at the same time. Eh?
I think in the example, like if you go to Abu Dhabi for 5 days, you're technically a traveler.
Yeah, you're technically a traveler, but it'll be easy for you.
It'll be easy for you as a Muslim country. and
Exactly.
Whatever. You got 4 days to yourself.
Exactly. So in that sense, you should fast.
Yeah.
But in reality, you don't need to, because you are actually classified as a traveler. Yeah.
But when you say you don't have to fast for 5 days,
That's why
you don't have to, but you can if you wish to.
in places like if you go to Abu Dhabi, yeah, you don't have to. But if you do, it's better for you. Look what it says here. But if it's going to be difficult for me though, if I'm like non-stop traveling on the plane and it's not easy, let's say it is difficult. Let's say it's difficult, okay? Then in that case, I won't need to fast. It's makruh for me to fast if it's difficult for me, okay? If it's easy, then I should, okay? And if he does not experience difficulty, then the fasting is afdal for him. What does afdal mean? Afdal means more better, more virtuous. The fasting will be more better for him, because that way, in a sense, you fasted in Ramadan rather than doing the qada later. Why Allah says in the Surah Baqarah, the fasting will be better for you. To make up for the fast, rather than keeping them later, if you can, it will be better for you. You understand? Okay. And the next question is still to do with the traveler. What should a musafir do if he comes home before the midday? Now, all this time we were talking about, traveling before Fajr, traveling after Fajr. Now let's say I'm traveling in the night, yeah? I'm traveling in the night, or it's a 1.5 day journey. It's a 1.5 day journey. So 1 full day I've traveled. Before Fajr I've been traveling, yeah? So I don't need to fast that day, do I? Okay. Now what do you call it? Now the next day comes in, I'm still traveling. Fajr time has started, and I'm still traveling. So what do you call it? I'm classified as a traveler. Now let's say I've got home. I've reached Heathrow, I've reached my home, and it's like, let's say it's before 11. Remember the Shari'i midday, what is it referring to? Remember that term we mentioned in the first lesson, Dahwatul Kubra. Yeah, how do you find Dahwatul Kubra? The midpoint between Fajr and sunset. Not sunrise and sunset, Fajr and sunset. So that's going to be before, isn't it? Okay, let's say I get home before that day. Let's say I get home before that time. Yeah, let's call it 10 o'clock. And the Shari'i midday is 11 o'clock. And the normal midday is 12 o'clock. Just to make it easy, think of it like that, okay? I get home at 10, Shari'i midday is 11, and what do you call it? And the normal midday is 12, okay? Normal midday will be 12 when, for example, Fajr, when sunrise is 6, sunset is 6. Bang on middle will be what do you call it? A normal midday. But let's say Fajr was, let's say Fajr was, 4 o'clock, 4 a.m. and sunset is 6 p.m. Then the middle of that is 10 a.m. I think. In the middle of that is 10 a.m. Yeah? So 10 a.m. is the Shari'i midday. Okay? So let's say 11 a.m. is the Shari'i midday. 11 a.m. is the Shari'i midday. Now let's say I've got home at 10 a.m. and it's Ramadan, I've got home at 10 a.m. and I'm home before the Shari'i midday. What should I do? If I haven't eaten anything, then I should fast. Because what's the latest that we can make intention for fast in Ramadan? The Shari'i midday, Dahwatul Kubra. Okay? But let's say I was on the plane, snacking away after Fajr, and now I'm home. Should I fast? You can't, because you've already you've already begun the day. What do you call it? Having the peanuts on the plane. Do you understand? So in that case, you won't fast. So the answer is, if a traveler came home, sorry, must have, what do you call it? Let me go back previous. So if a traveler came home before Dahwatul Kubra, as we were saying, the midpoint, I want you to remember these key words. Dahwatul Kubra, the midpoint between Fajr and sunset. So in a sense, that day is longer, isn't it, than sunrise and sunset. So if you come home before Dahwat al-Kubra and you haven't consumed anything, yeah, you haven't eaten anything yet since dawn, yeah, if you ate something before Fajr, then it's fine, you can fast it. But remember, the fast should begin from Fajr, so since from dawn. So if you haven't eaten anything, then the fast will be valid if you make the intention for it, because you still got the time, isn't it? Dahwat al-Kubra, you still got the time. If he came home after Dahwat al-Kubra, then his fast won't be valid, yeah, because you're too late. You haven't made the intention yet. The intention is only valid before Dahwat al-Kubra. Say you're on the plane and you know what, I'm going to get home. You can make that intention, then it's fine, as long as you've made the intention before Dahwat al-Kubra, okay? So if he comes home afterwards, then his fast won't be valid. But the scholars do say, out of respect for the month, and because you're home now, you should stay away from food for the rest of the day. Of course, if it's difficult, then that's a different scenario. But if you think, only another few hours left, uncle, only another few hours left till Maghrib, and I can stay away from food and water for the next few hours, then you should, even though it's not going to count as a fast though. It won't count as a fast, but you should stay away out of the respect for the month. Do you understand? Because let's say, for example, you got home, you haven't eaten anything, but you got home after Dahwat al-Kubra. Of course, it's not going to count as a fast anymore, but you should stay away if you can. That is, if you can't, then of course, snack away.
Come home and say to the wife, come on, I want a big fat meal because I've been travelling. While everybody else fasting.
But yeah, that's the thing. It puts you in an awkward position, doesn't it? Unless you go to your bedroom and snack on the peanuts from the plane. So that was that question. The next question we have. So we've spoken about traveling. We've spoken about someone falling ill. What if someone falls unconscious in Ramadan? If someone just all of a sudden falls unconscious in Ramadan, what will happen? The answer: if someone fell unconscious during a day of Ramadan or on the previous night after having made the intention to keep the fast, okay, and his unconsciousness lasted longer than a day, he will not need to keep the qada of that day. So for example, let's say, I've made intention to fast, yeah? I've made intention to fast, uncle. Tomorrow, tomorrow's Ramadan, for example, the 10th of Ramadan tomorrow, and I've made the intention to fast, but on that night or even in the day, I fell unconscious, and I was unconscious for 24 hours. That day, will I need to make up for that day? No, I won't need to make up for that day. But if I was unconscious for 5 days, but I made intention for that first day, did I make intention for the next 4? No. So that first day, I don't need to keep the qada, but the next 4, I need to, because I never even made the intention to keep the fast for those next 4 days. So that's why I've written here. He will, if the unconsciousness lasted longer than a day, then he will not need to keep the qada of that day. That day he fell unconscious, and with the condition that he made the intention, he will not need to keep the qada of that day. However, he will need to keep qada of any subsequent days. So if he's unconscious for the next 4 or 5 days, for the first day he made the intention, he won't need to keep. For the next 5 days, he wasn't able to, because let's say, for example, he was in a coma, example, okay? So for the next 5 days, he will need to keep the qada, okay? And if the intention was not made on the day he fell unconscious, then he must keep for that day as well, okay? So what's the difference here in regard is the intention, because he made the intention for the fast. That in a sense, that intention kind of removed that debt from him.
What about the intention for all the month?
Huh?
Ramadan is coming, and my intention is to fast all the month.
So the intention needs to be made either the day before or before Fajr. I can't make intention for right now, I'm going to fast the whole of Ramadan fast, yeah? The day needs to come first, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah? It's like, for example, I'm not going to make intention to pray Fajr when it's not even Fajr yet. Can I do that? Yeah? I can't do that, can I? I'm only going to make intention to pray Fajr when it's Fajr time. So you make the intention of Ramadan once it's Ramadan time, okay? So that was a person who falls unconscious. Now, what's the ruling of a crazy, insane person? If a person is insane, what was the uncle? Huh? So if a person what's the ruling for a person who is insane? If he remains insane throughout the whole of Ramadan, if a person is crazy, if he's mentally insane, classified as insane by the doctors, by the professionals, then neither does he need to keep the qada or fulfill the fidya. Nothing will be wajib upon him. He won't need to do anything. He won't need to make up for the fidya. He won't need to make up for the qada. Why? Because it's mentioned in the hadith. The hadith begins, I believe, Rufi al-qalamu min thalath, I think. Rufi al-qalam min thalath. What it means, the pen has been lifted from 3 people. Okay? Meaning what it means by the pen has been lifted, meaning the obligation has been lifted from 3 people. Meaning nothing is obligatory upon them. Such as salah, such as fast. And one of the persons mentioned is an insane person until he gets better. Until he gets better. So in this scenario, if someone is insane for the whole of Ramadan, he doesn't need to make up for any fast. He doesn't need to keep qada, he doesn't need to keep fidya. But if he recovers in Ramadan, what should he do? He should keep the fast of the days remaining and keep the qada of the days he was insane. So this is the difference we need to understand, okay? If he is crazy for the whole Ramadan, let's say he's mentally crazy, he's been classified as crazy permanent, then of course he doesn't need to keep anything. Let's say someone just fallen crazy for 2-3 weeks in Ramadan, okay? But in Ramadan he's recovered, so he'll need to keep the fasts as usual, and the 2-3 weeks he missed,